Hey, Real Green Ninja here. The video you're about to watch is a supplement to the existing tutorials and help videos already available on the Real Green website. I do take a more casual approach because I'm presenting this information as I would if you called in, although I may have a little fun with it. This video is based upon the information I, as a Real Green technician, would provide using my experience on the help desk. This video was created on my own time to assist with areas of the software that may be waiting for an official help video or tutorial. At the beginning of the training video, I will have the version of the Service Assistant the video was made with. I will also try to be as accurate as possible, but be aware, as Service Assistant updates are released, things may change. I'm using the name Real Green Ninja as not to stand out from the other amazing technicians that I work with. I hope the information in this video helps you, so grab a cup of coffee and I hope you learn something new. Hey, Real Green Ninja here. This is another one of my videos in the parameters series, so let's begin. Today we're going to be talking about routing parameters. Now, we're not talking about going through and actually doing routes. We're not talking about creating the routes. We're not talking about changing routes. We're not talking about mass reassigning routes. Again, all I'm going to be doing is talk about the routing parameters themselves. Now, under routing parameters, which is located under data, customer parameters, and then routing parameters, you'll see we have territory, zone, route, and vehicles. Now, territory and zone is really meant for large companies that have lots of franchises because they don't want their franchises competing with each other. So they'll set up territories, they'll set up zones, assign them accordingly, and stuff like that. If you're starting out and you're a smaller company and you don't have tons of franchises, even if you have like 4 or 5 franchises, you probably don't have to worry about it too much. Again, it's one of those ones that have hundreds and hundreds of franchises when it becomes really important. So again, like I said, this is probably something you're not going to touch, at least hopefully. You will eventually down the road. You need to use it, but you're definitely not going to touch for right now. But if you do need to set up a territory, then we can just, again, as always, hit New, put in your territory information. Now, when you add a territory into the system, once there's a territory, you'll actually then get the territory drop-down box, and that's over here on the customer screen. If we go to a customer, just at random here, you'll see there's a test territory that's in my parameters. So again, like I said, though, it's something that you probably don't have to worry about too much until you get to be really, really, really large, which again, hopefully, we hope down the road you will need them at some point. Same with zones, put in the information and so on and so forth. Now, route. This is probably the most important tab under this routing utilities or routing parameters, because this is where you're actually going to define your routes. This is where you're going to put in what is available for a customer or a job to have. So again, you're going to hit New, type in what the name of your route is. So let's say it's going to be RT3. And again, it doesn't matter what the code or description is as long as you guys know what it means. And as far as, how to do the routes or how many routes you need and stuff, a lot of companies, what they'll tend to do is they'll tend to have like one route per truck, or they'll have one route per type of service, or they'll have the route based on geographical area. Now, again, it's up to you. It's up to you to decide how you want to define these routes. You can say, okay, well, the north side of the city is going to be this route, south side is going to be this route, mowing truck 1 is going to be this route, mowing truck 2 is going to be this route. Again, different companies do things different ways. That's what's nice about our software. It's very, very flexible. The downside is you have to go through and get, set it all up and everything. Figure out how you want to use it. And you'll see there's my zone if I set up. Now, if the route's available for all kinds of jobs, you can check mark all here. That means you have flexibility. You can assign this to pretty much anything, this route. But if you want it to be to a specific service or job, again, if you're doing mowing and you don't want to accidentally add the mow route to the non-mowing service, then you can go through and define which one of these services that you want this route to be available for. But you got to remember to uncheck the all if you do that. Okay, so like I said, again, different companies use the software different ways. I always recommend having a test customer, someone to play around with and mess around with the routes and stuff like that. If we go to, or you are going to have to tie it to a company. So again, you may have 3 mowing 1 routes, like mowing route 1 Anaheim, mowing route 2 San Diego or something like that. Again, you'd go through and create the route and tie it to a company. Now, the directions field here is again where you can type directions to get to that location. But with GPS and with all the routing assistant and stuff like that, a lot of times nowadays they really don't need directions in there because they know how to get there. And if they don't, they can use their smartphone or GPS receiver or something like that. For the route, you're also going to indicate what days of the week this route's available to be used. Okay, and what's going to happen is if you try to add this route to a job that's scheduled for a date that's not, or a day that's not checkmarked there, it's actually going to kick up a message saying, hey, this route normally is not allowed for this job for this day. Are you sure you want to do it? Or it might even just have an okay. it doesn't stop you from assigning it. It's just going to warn you if you do. So again, you might do your fertilization Monday through Friday. Mowing might be Monday through Saturday. Or you might even work Sunday. Again, you're going to check mark what days this route would be available. And one also nice thing is if you use a scheduler, it will actually show that route being closed. Again, you can still put appointments on there. It's just going to prompt you and say, hey, normally you're not supposed to do this, but, if you do, are you sure you want to go ahead? You can also set text color and background color where the route shows up. And then down here in the lower left-hand corner, okay, let's say you have a situation where you have a mowing crew chief, and the mowing crew chief takes the truck home during the week. Instead of routing it from the office so he doesn't have to drive back to the office each time, you could have the mowing crew meet at his house and then go from his house out to the stops and stuff. And this is where you're going to set the latitude and longitude of that, as well as the start time and stop time. Again, if it's anything outside the time on the scheduler, is going to mark this closed. Like I said, you could still assign jobs to that. It's just going to prompt you and say, hey, are you sure you want to do it? But like I said, you can have a different starting and stopping location, and this is going to override that starting and stopping location that's in the company parameters. Again, this is for if you have Mapping Assistant or the Routing Assistant. Like I said, once you have all this stuff set up, you hit save, and then if you go to a customer screen, again, because the customers themselves can have a default route, but the individual jobs and services, you can select a specific route for them. Oops, I have actually the route drop down. There we go. So again, you go ahead and select your route. As always, some screens you have to close and then reopen for it to get to refresh. Let's do this here, and let's try that again, and edit, and there's my route 3. Okay, so like I said, keep in mind some of these windows you have to close and refresh, and I sometimes forget which ones are which. So, all right, let's go back to data, customer parameters, and routing parameters. The last thing I want to talk about on this screen is the vehicles tab. Again, this is one of those things not a lot of people use the software for. They don't keep track of their maintenance and stuff because we aren't a vehicle maintenance tracking software. But you can put information in there, so at least you have some sort of record. So you can put in the vehicle description. And again, you might have like mowing truck 1 or 1984 Ford or something like that. Again, you give it some sort of description, whether or not it's available anymore. Okay, what company it's tied to, the make, model, year, as well as VIN number. It looks like someone actually already set this up. I did not put this in there. Your license plate, when it expires, the in-service date, retired date, as well as what the current odometer is. Now, the system doesn't keep track of the odometer, in steps. So if I come in here and change this to 70,000, it's not going to know that the last reading was 6641. But you can add this information down in the notes field. So let's say you replace the tires at 6641. Okay, and you can put like the tire make and model information in there, if like a receipt number. Again, whatever information you can put in this notes field, and that way you have a record of it inside Service Assistant software itself. And then of course, once you do that, you change it to whatever the current mileage is or whatever. And then actually that's pretty obscenely high, so let's fix that. There we go. Let's see. I'm going to put something in here. There we go. That's a little bit more realistic. So again, like I was saying, is you can go ahead and put it in there and then hit save. Now, when you're doing production, there is a drop-down box where you can type in, or you can indicate what vehicle did the work. All right, so again, you can put that information in that drop-down box, and like I said, you can keep track of it if you want to. So, as I mentioned before, this isn't something that a lot of people use for as far as vehicles, territory, and zones, but this route tab is the most important because this is where you're actually going to define your routes. Some companies I've talked to, they have one route for their 500 customers. Some companies have 3 or 4 routes depending on how many trucks they have and how they service. Again, we'll help you and show you where to put the routes in there, but for the most part, it is kind of up to you to decide how you want to do your routing. Most common thing I see is based on truck. So, hope this was helpful, and you guys have yourself a wonderful day.